Have you ever felt there's something in your life that's never been explained? A sudden feeling that behind the veil of the everyday, there's a hidden truth, powerful, almost forbidden to be said out loud? Close your eyes for a second. Imagine you're walking through a silent library, infinite shelves of forgotten books, until your hand touches a hidden volume marked with strange symbols. You realize here's what no one ever told you. Edition after edition, they erased the traces, tore out pages, destroyed tapes, tried to bury the greatest answer to human existence, and yet, like a stubborn echo, it always returns. A message whispered through time. You were created by a higher power, and one man dared to uncover this secret, Edgar Cayce. Now, before we unveil what's behind that curtain, I need your commitment. If you want to receive more content like this, to dive into the depths of forgotten mysteries and join those who dare to question everything, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe, and most importantly, write in the comments, I am ready to know. Because today, you're going to experience what many have tried to hide from you. But get ready. What begins now isn't just a story. It's an invitation to a memory that lives inside you. Something that was numbed, asleep, but never destroyed. Are you ready to cross that border of common sense? If so, keep going. Maybe you're thinking, why should I care about Edgar Cayce? What does he have to do with me? Here's why. At some point in history, entire files on his revelations vanished. Interviews recorded, transcribed, sworn to be true by eyewitnesses were erased from records. And the scariest part, the only explanation was that people weren't ready. Ready to discover what? That disease isn't just bad luck. That we live small parts of a larger puzzle, with tiny threads connecting us to an invisible intelligence. How many times have you thought it was just a coincidence that something unexplainable happened? What if it's not chance? What if there are answers you've always looked for, and that now, finally, are about to emerge? Many, out of pure fear, tried to sweep the memory of this man under the collective rug. But there's something no one can erase. The urgency, the hunger for meaning, the infinite search for answers that burns in our chest every night. Be honest. Have you ever felt the urge to know who you really are and why you are here? Imagine for a moment someone who didn't even fit into his own time. A simple man raised in rural America, but who carried a restlessness born from the other side of the veil. Edgar Cayce was called a prophet by some people, but the word is too small and too loaded with judgments for the dimension of his experience. What happened to him wasn't dogma, wasn't theater, wasn't a shot in the dark. It was a real dive into deep waters in search of answers that only silence can reveal. Cayce was a channel. Many would say, oh, but anyone can be a channel. Yes, they can. The detail was that he had the courage not to pretend to be blind. Cayce didn't present himself as a martyr, nor as all-powerful. He placed himself as a mirror, the wise one who exists in each of us, but who is almost always kept in locked drawers. Researchers who studied his accounts say that in his presence, the atmosphere changed. A dense aura, as if the air became heavy and soft at the same time, filled the room. They whispered that, when he closed his eyes, he seemed to converse with a consciousness beyond common understanding. In his trance sessions, Cayce answered questions never asked out loud. He saw hidden diseases in the bodies of strangers, and to the astonishment of doctors of the time, suggested treatments that no medical manual dared to even report. A famous doctor wrote in his diary, "Meeting Cayce is like looking into the eyes of the wind." It's not about idolatry, but the perception of the archetype, the one who, in the tradition of Jung, embodies the sage who guides the heroes, the seekers, in the journey through inner darkness. Imagine someone who, upon falling asleep, became the very point of intersection between two worlds, the visible and the invisible. A prophet who whispers truths that could not be said out loud, as close accounts record. Edgar Cayce became, beyond the historical man, a symbol of the universal awakening, of the call to search for the something greater. That daily disturbs us. You, the viewer, have you ever felt the silent call to break from routine and seek something beyond the limits of reason? Cayce is the reminder. There exists, inside each one, a hidden map toward the unknown, and he dared to follow that path, not to be worshipped, but to remind everyone that the path is possible. He was, paradoxically, as common as he was extraordinary. His doubts were similar to yours: fear of ridicule, fear of disappointing, fear of crossing the line of what's allowed. However, unlike most, Cayce didn't succumb to fear. He made fear a compass. Perhaps at this very moment, the biggest question isn't, what did Cayce know? But rather, what if I, like him, accept the call of the unknown? Perhaps the most unsettling part of Edgar Cayce's life isn't its rarity, but the impact his actions had on so many people, in so many places, for so many decades. Imagine, just for a moment, that thousands of people, strangers, desperate or sick, skeptics or dreamers, crossed continents in search of a word, an answer, a thread of hope. And they found something that changed their lives. There are accounts, manuscripts, letters kept by descendants that describe almost unbelievable episodes. Sleepless mothers, in tears next to feverish children, would write to Cayce and receive, days later, detailed instructions for remedies that didn't even exist yet. People considered to be out of options would return to thank him, years later, narrating spontaneous healings, radical transformations, emotional reconciliations. The skepticism was overwhelming, and yet the facts piled up: fulfilled predictions, cured diseases, unexplainable encounters. But why does this matter? Because we are all, on one level or another, thirsty for validation. The simple fact that thousands have already found this truth causes a restlessness in the chest. What if it's real? What if this whole phenomenon is the result not of an exclusive gift, but of the radical opening to a little explored field of consciousness? The silent and emotional social proof seeps into the mind. We are not alone in our search. There are others, so many others, who walked this path of doubts and returned with answers. And here, at this exact point, a kind of spiritual envy takes hold. Why could some see what I can't? Why did so many, even without knowing each other, report solutions and miracles after attuning with Cayce's ideas? It's not just about testimonies. It's about entire constellations of souls that meet in the same desire to reconnect with the sacred that is missing from our daily lives. It's almost impossible to hear these stories without asking yourself, what if, even without knowing it, I've already been closer to these answers than I imagine? Maybe you, watching this video, are one comment, one decision, one step away from discovering what thousands have already touched. You don't have to believe. Not at this moment. But honestly, can you really ignore the call of something that mobilized healings, encounters, transformations? Faced with so many cross-referenced accounts, so many testimonies of faith amid the coldest skepticism, doesn't a desire arise to, at least, investigate what exists beyond the obvious? If there is an invisible thread that unites all stories of revelation, it's this: the more intense the truth, the more powerful are the forces that try to silence it. And with Edgar Cayce, the shadows also organized. Few know, and even fewer want to admit, that a significant part of the original files of his sessions disappeared. Recorders with conversations never reproduced, transcriptions of sessions destroyed, interviews witnessed by doctors and jurists banned from public records, citing the phrase, "It is not safe for this information to circulate." But why? What is so dangerous about the truths that Cayce brought to light? Cayce's own grandson reported, in interviews erased from the internet, that there was a kind of unofficial society committed to diluting his memory, labeling him a fraud or a schizophrenic. Some articles suggested that research labs mysteriously lost funding after publishing studies on his predictions. There are even rumors of entire sessions being lost in fires shortly before being handed over to the press. These are too many coincidences not to cause discomfort. Or could the real risk have been not in the information itself, but in the ability to awaken in people the potential to change their destiny? Feel the vibration of this idea. There are truths so disruptive they can only be whispered between the lines. What was erased from the history books may never have been completely lost. It just changed form, became a myth, infiltrated our culture as a kind of secret code. And by accessing these ideas, you become part of a minority capable of recognizing signs that most dismiss as fantasy. Here, the sense of exclusivity is born. Would you like to have access to what they always tried to hide? The theory of the secret has always been one of the biggest fuels of human desire, the forbidden, the hidden, that which moves crowds toward the unknown. Watching this video now is almost like crossing a thin line. an unofficial initiation into the club of those who see beyond the gray every day. It's no wonder ancient accounts state, civilizations fall, but the seeds of knowledge never die, they just hide. Now, take a deep breath. Allow yourself to feel discomfort because the path of rediscovery is uncomfortable, fiery. Do you perceive the whisper of forces trying to discredit, sabotage, bury everything that represents the expansion of consciousness? Do you perceive how many voices have tried to silence, over the centuries, all who dared to light a lantern in forbidden rooms? If so far you feel this chill, don't fight it. This is your soul recognizing the truth. Are you ready to cross the next layer? At this point in the journey, it's impossible not to feel that you are not here by chance. Edgar Cayce is not just a figure from the past, he is the reflection of the universal invitation for all of us, one day, to wake up. If you've made it this far, don't close this door now. Leave your like, subscribe, and write, "I choose to awaken" in the comments. Only then will this cycle of forgotten memories remain alive, and together, we will make this truth, so long buried in oblivion, vibrate. What if I told you that, from here on out, every piece of your life could start to make sense in a new light? We'll continue, and I invite you to continue with us, because the next secrets are even deeper. Do you want to know why this story is so powerful? Because it doesn't offer ready-made answers. It invites you to remember what has always been inside. Edgar Cayce didn't bring one truth, he brought layers. He deepened the mystery like someone walking in a spiral that, with each turn, reveals another dimension. Each account, each of his sessions, was like a fragment of a greater whole. And by gathering these fragments, disease, soul, karma, reincarnation, free will, an image almost impossible to ignore began to emerge. We are not victims of life. We are creative fragments of a divine intelligence, on a journey of remembrance. Yes, Cayce spoke of the soul as one who describes the sky. For him, all diseases of the body had their origin in the spirit. All physical pain was a symbolic message from the soul, screaming, "You are out of alignment with your purpose." Diseases, traumas, repetitions, each of these elements was, in his readings, a kind of coded letter from within the individual, asking for realignment. You are not sick, you are misremembering yourself. That's what he reportedly told a woman with unexplainable paralysis. After following the advice described in a trance by Cayce-specific dietary changes, herbal baths, and a deep spiritual reconnection, she walked again. Doctors classified it as a miracle, but Cayce declared, it wasn't a miracle, it was memory. When you reconnect with who you truly are, the body returns to vibrating at the frequency it was born to sustain. This is where your mind starts to open another door, reincarnation. Yes, Cayce talked about past lives, and not as an esoteric poet or a fanciful mystic, but as one who brought diagnoses. His patients asked, "Why can't I have children? Why did I suffer this accident? Why this irrational fear?" And the answers came with dates, locations, traumatic events, from a life in 14th century Spain, from a trauma in ancient India, from a mistake made in ancient Egypt. You can choose to see this as madness, but strangely, the accounts began to fill gaps in people's psyches. They changed. It was as if something clicked into place, as if an invisible veil, which had been covering the logic of their existence, was finally removed. And what's more, the change occurred not after grand magical rituals, but after the simple act of remembering. Symptoms disappeared, patterns were broken, present relationships reorganized. But Cayce didn't stop there. He took everything to a higher level, because even while recognizing reincarnation as a reality, he insisted on an even more transformative truth, free will. You have the power to change everything. You are not stuck with karma. You are not a hostage of destiny. You are, at the same time, author, director, and main character of your story. But only when you wake up, only when you remember, you can choose. And it's at this point in the journey that the first whisper of the inner divine occurs. Maybe, just maybe, you didn't come to this life to accumulate things, please people, follow rules, or avoid mistakes. Maybe you came to this life with a much deeper mission to remember your creative origin and live it fully without fear. And Cayce said, the purpose of the soul is to become one with God. Not with a character God, vengeful or distant, but with the creative consciousness that shapes us. The loving intelligence that breathes in all things, that vibrates in you now, there as you listen to this video. This presence might seem distant, but according to Cayce, it is in the most intimate and powerful place, at the center of your being. Each layer of this truth is like a key, and you now have one of them in your hands. The next one? It will be even more unsettling. Now listen to this. If you're the type who believes certain things just happen, maybe this moment will disarm you. Edgar Cayce stated in no uncertain terms, suffering is not random punishment. Diseases, tragedies, losses, poverty, emotional disturbances are not stupid accidents of chance. They are, almost always, choices made at a deeper level of existence, or voluntary lessons, or unconscious creation through free will. Pause. Breathe. This idea is explosive, and yes, uncomfortable. On one hand, it shatters the old belief that we are helpless victims of a cruel reality. On the other hand, it throws us into a vertigo. So, I am responsible for everything I experience, even the pain? This is what Cayce challenged you to face, the radical responsibility of the soul. See, most people avoid this idea because it destroys the oldest emotional comfort zone we know, that of blaming the external. God, the government, parents, karma, genes, bad luck, the devil, the world, everything serves as a shield to not say, I co-created this. And Cayce didn't say this as an accusation, but as an invitation. If you're the one who wrote this script of pain, then you can also rewrite it. Do you see the tragic beauty of this? You are not condemned. You are in process. Your difficulties, the emotional, the financial, the physical, can be understood as parts of a greater pedagogy of the soul. You came to learn, to heal, to experience. But learning is not completed in denial. It's completed in transcendence. And that requires responsibility. You know that repeating pattern? That constant fear? The same kind of relationship that goes wrong? The disease that comes and goes? You have two alternatives. Keep calling it bad luck, or accept that there is something greater wanting to be remembered and transcended. Shocking? Yes. Liberating? Even more so. This doesn't mean you deserve to suffer. It means that even suffering may have been part of your conscious choice, even before physical birth, to provoke growth. Nothing happens without purpose. Nothing is in vain. And behind this apparent cruelty, there is a cosmic mathematics that always seeks to lead you back to wholeness. So, what do you choose now? Because according to Cayce, this is the spiritual turning point, that moment when you understand that life doesn't happen to you, but through you, in you. And if that's true, then your whole life starts to look different. Now I'm going to ask you a question that could change everything. Have you ever dreamed of something you never lived, but it still felt real? Have you ever felt homesick for a place you don't remember visiting? Or then, have you had the strange feeling that you've been trying to remember something very important for years, but it slipped from your memory like sand through your fingers? If so, welcome back. Cayce said that these experiences, the real dreams, the memories we don't know where they come from, the déjà vus that give you chills, are fragments of other lives, echoes of your other existences calling you back to remembrance. All this is part of a long chain of soul experiences that, little by little, tries to reintegrate. You can call it cellular memory. You can call it intuitive recognition. From Cayce's point of view, it's just your divine spark whispering, remember who you are. You know that moment when you enter a place for the first time and feel like you've been there before? Or meet a person and in the first seconds feel as if you've known them for millennia. You feel a lump in your throat, a warmth in your chest, a deep emotion without a rational explanation. These are the points of intersection between your current soul and the journeys your essence has already taken. They are small portals of memory. And Cayce said, the soul always knows. It's the ego that forgets. And here comes the most challenging invitation of all. What if what you are missing isn't a thing, but you yourself? What if the emptiness you try to fill with distraction, consumption, or relationships is just the longing for you to be whole, for your soul to be aligned with your body, for your purpose to flow through your veins with the force of a rushing river? Look around you. How many people live numb, wandering in search of something they can't even describe? How many live in perfect apartments with silent internal ruins? How many post smiles but cry in the dark? What if all these layers of pain are just the symptom of a deeper disconnection? Cayce insisted, you don't need to look outside for what burns within. And if you've made it this far in this video, maybe you're starting to remember. Not something I said, but something that already existed inside. And that just needed this spark to begin to awaken. So answer me honestly. Who are you, behind the name they gave you, behind the profession you have, behind the story you told to survive in the world? Have you ever stopped to ask that question? If you haven't, this is the moment. And if you have, maybe now you can, for the first time, face the answer without looking away. This is the true beginning of your journey. It's no longer a theory. It's no longer about Edgar Cayce. Now, it's about you. In the next 3 topics, we'll dive into the spiritual promise of liberation, culminate in the emotional crescendo that links past and future, and deliver the final call to personal transformation, with deep archetypes, internal metaphors, and the subtle invitation to individual transcendence. What if everything you've ever looked for was already inside you? This phrase might sound beautiful, even poetic, but for Edgar Cayce, it was a statement, a deep truth, repeated not out of vanity, but because when someone sees beyond the veil, they can no longer pretend the world is what it seems. Cayce said, "Man is more than flesh, bone, and thought. He is, above all, an eternal spirit, temporarily housed in the body." And this is one of the greatest promises of his legacy. You are not abandoned on this planet. You are not lost in a strange land trying to survive where nothing makes sense. You came with purpose, with a mission, with direction. You came to remember. You are eternal. You are a soul in mutation, a vibration that spans centuries, a fragment of the original light trying to remember its pure form before limiting beliefs, before suffering, before traumas. Think about it with me. How many times have you felt an unexplainable sense of connection with the sky, with nature, with deep silence? How many times have you been certain, intimate, almost unconfessable, that there is something grand happening beyond what the eyes can see? Cayce doesn't ask you to believe in anything. He didn't found religions. He didn't expect worship. What he did, and this is where the promise emerges like a lighthouse, was to welcome you into your process of rediscovery. He just said, in a silent but certain way, it's all in you. Your ability to heal yourself, your ability to create your reality, your ability to communicate with forces beyond the physical world. When Cayce went into a trance and revealed information that was impossible for a common man of his time, the intention wasn't to prove power. It was to prove that consciousness is a field accessible to everyone. You don't need to be born with a special gift. You just need to wake up. There's a point inside you, between the silence of the mind and the truth of the spirit, where all questions cease, where you no longer feel the anxiety of searching, because you remember that you always knew. And as surreal as this may sound, maybe it's starting to happen now. Perhaps at this exact moment, while your mind tries to rationalize what you're hearing, your heart already knows what is happening. You are remembering that you are more than your story, more than your mistakes, more than your name. True liberation happens when we stop looking outside for the answers that have always been silently calling us from within. Cayce brought this awakening not as a theory, but as an experience, and you have just been invited to it. Now listen to me carefully. So many people came this far, few stayed, but you remained. You listened, you felt. You crossed this mix of words, distant memories, and unsettling mysteries. This means something. Maybe you thought you were just watching another video on the internet, another interesting, mystical, provocative piece of content. But what if it's not? What if this is that kind of moment? That moment that years later you remember as the instant something inside you flipped a switch. It's no coincidence that you clicked here. It's no coincidence that at this point, your eyes are slightly wet, your heart open, the silence between each word resonating louder than the sound. Cayce said that no encounter is by chance, that each interaction carries seeds planted millennia ago. So tell me, why are you today, now in this video, hearing this message? Why are you here? Maybe it's because the time has come, not to learn something new, but to activate something old. We live in cycles. Everything that begins returns. Everything that forgets one day remembers. This video, it may seem like a beginning, but for your soul, it's a homecoming. And now you're starting to realize The line that connects Cayce, you, and everyone who walks this spiritual journey is not woman, nor man, nor time, nor religion. It's consciousness. It's this silent and living presence that is listening with you now. That sacred space between your thoughts, which observes everything but clings to nothing. This mystery that you may have felt your whole life but never knew how to name is you. Your whole life, all your searches, all your pains were just the path to get back here, to this listening, to this moment. Take a deep breath. This isn't the end of this video. It's the end of the illusion that you needed something from outside. You were already whole, even when you forgot it. And now it becomes clearer. Now it makes sense. Maybe Cayce was just a portal on your own journey inward, a mirror, a memory. And this video wasn't just a video, it was a sign. And now I ask you, are you ready to remember completely? Everything you're looking for is already with you. The peace you desire, the healing you hope for. The proof you seek so much. There's no manual, no formula, because the true code is hidden in the most intimate place, yourself. Cayce said there was no distance between man and the divine, just amnesia. And it's against this amnesia that we fight every day, even without knowing it. We forget what we came to do, who we are, why we feel, and in this fog we create disguises, we settle for crumbs, while deep down something always knew, I am more. That voice that has always been there, silent, subtle, it starts to speak louder now. Because now you know that what you heard can no longer be unheard, an idea that invades gently but never leaves. Remember what Cayce said? The secret is closer than your own breath. It's there, it's always been, and when you are silent, you will hear. Breathe. Close your eyes if you can. Now imagine, your whole life, everything you lived, every detail, was a necessary chapter for you to be exactly here, at this moment. What if everything had been in fact a preparation? And what if, from now on, however subtle it may be, you are no longer the same? Maybe this is the first time you feel this. Not euphoria, but silence, certainty, expansion, as if something had been activated. If so, breathe once more. And no, it's not the end, it's just the beginning again. And now, the choice is yours. You can click on another video and let all this dissolve like a forgotten dream, or you can honor the call. Comment below, I remember who I am. This is your seal of awakening. If this message touched you, share it. With every soul that listens, another is lit. Join us. Like, subscribe, hit the bell. Not out of vanity, but because this conversation, this sacred memory, isn't just yours. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to get access to more stories like this. It's ours. It was waiting for you. And now that you're here, you'll never be able to pretend you didn't hear this call again, because it came from yourself. And you, finally, are ready to remember.